everybody. I'm Dr. David Litwa, and today I'm completing my teaser series on posthuman transformation. This is a series in which I'm encouraging everybody to go with me chapter by chapter through my book, Posthuman Transformation in Ancient Mediterranean Thought, Becoming Angels and Demons. This is a book which I hope many of you will think about purchasing. If you like the Hecalote, which is the literature of Jewish mysticism, and Neoplatonism, you're going to love the content of Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is called The Angelification of Zostrianus. And if you haven't caught the intro plus the first 7 chapters, go check those out. Zostrianus, I've done a couple videos on. What I'm going to focus on is the transformation of Zostrianus into an angel. For the Nag Hammadi text called Zostrianus, you can check out my episode on that in the Nag Hammadi series. Suffice it to say that Zostrianus was, according to tradition, apparently the grandfather of Zoroaster, and thus a Persian sage. It was sometimes said that in Plato's Republic, the Pamphylian is another name for Zoroaster. The fact that Zostrianus is even older than Zoroaster gives him some additional clout. And his work, or the work attributed to him in the Nag Hammadi library, can be found in Codex 8. And what you'll see there is, unfortunately, a rather lacunose text. That is a text with some gaps, but it still makes for very exciting reading, maybe with the lights dimmed late at night. Basically, Zostrianus is an ancient sage, an extreme ascetic, and he takes a journey to all of the levels of heaven. But it's not the traditional journey which we know from the Jewish apocalyptic literature. Zostrianus specifically goes through the levels of Neoplatonic structures, specifically Neoplatonic levels of heaven. And that's what's interesting about this text. So it tells us that we're fairly late in time, that is probably the early 3rd century, and we know that this particular treatise, supposedly written by Zostrianus, is refuted, or there's an attempted refutation, I should say, by Aemilius in 40 books. Aemilius being the disciple of Plotinus. So Plotinus in a circle takes this text very seriously. They had it in Greek, we now have it in Coptic, and it is a precious resource for what I think is Christian reflection and Christian engagement with Neoplatonism. Why do I say it's Christian? Well, you'll have to read my book for that. Obviously, we're dealing with a sage here who is much earlier than Jesus, but Christians were very good at attributing their wisdom to more ancient sages. Now, Zostrianus is a fictional character, but we're in the realm of historical fiction. If you were to meet Zostrianus on the street, you might think he was a homeless person. He was educated, but filled with philosophical questions about the nature of existence and life after death and the structure of reality that he felt to be hidden. And so Zostrianus embodies what the Platonists called the practice of death. He goes out into the desert, lives a life of extreme asceticism, and basically plans to kill himself by starvation, feeding himself only on his troubled thoughts, and thus eating his heart out. But these troubled thoughts aren't just the musings of a madman. They are in a sense, the attempt of Zostrianus to practice what the Platonists called contemplative virtue. It wasn't enough simply to live an ethical life. To transform oneself from within, one needed to transform the mind. And one transformed the mind by seeing reality as it truly is, not in terms of the images and sensations of this world, but going deep, deep, deep into the cavern of the self and finding the truth within. This was the path of Zostrianus. And it has its own ethical implications, but it's an extremely lonely path. Thankfully, Zostrianus was met by an angel, someone called a glory, and was saved from an early death. The very fact that Zostrianus becomes an angelic figure as opposed to a daimon or a daimonic figure tells us that we're accessing the discourses more of Jews and Christians who are writing apocalyptic literature about beings becoming angels. At the same time, this writer is extremely philosophically informed and tells a complex story about how Zostrianus enters into a level or an angelic phase which is appropriate to the sphere in which he's in. Okay, so below the moon, even while Zostrianus is zooming up on a cloud, below the moon he receives the image of the glories. And these glories are angels. And by using the term glories, it accesses this Jewish local color, because if you remember from Second Enoch, Enoch becomes like the glorious ones in chapter 22. The idea of the angels as glories or manifestation of God's glory is a very Jewish concept. But also when Zostrianus gets around to defining what glories are, he defines it in a very Hellenic and indeed a very Philonic way. They are perfect living concepts. Philo could refer to angels as logoi. Under the logos, that is, it's an intellectual, it's a being made of whatever the stuff of intellect is. That's what a glory and an angel is. So that's the first angelification of Zostrianus. But as he proceeds higher, this glorious image that he wears, this angelic body that he wears, becomes more and more rarefied until he reaches the level of pure intellect. Now, I'm not going to get into the very complex nature of Sethian metaphysics, and Sethian metaphysics that is informed by Neoplatonic metaphysics. Okay, for that you'll have to see the book and other discourses on the Sethians. I can recommend John Turner's big book on Sethian Gnosticism. But suffice it to say that there are basically 4 levels that the Sethians introduced, and these are the levels of the luminaries. And the luminaries themselves appear to be chief angelic figures, but they are on the level of soul. They exist below the level of what Plotinus called intellect. They are still on the level of soul. So there's some sort of ethereal reality to this set of levels. And it's on this set of levels that basically redeemed humans exist. Okay? And redeemed humans, not just Zostrianus, but all redeemed humans take on an angelic existence, typically in the first or the second level. That is the 2 bottom levels of the luminaries. And what happens to Zostrianus is that he goes through all 4 levels. And as he's going through the 4 levels, he goes through that quintessential of all Christian rites, that is a baptism. But it's a multiple baptism. So as he's exiting our universe and entering into the realm of soul, he enters into the first liminary and becomes a contemplative angel in a realm which is named for readiness of truth. Okay. And on the second level, he becomes a masculine angel in a realm called the vision of gnosis. Now, masculine here simply means, in the context of Zostrianus, non-material and strong. These are the patriarchal codings of the ancient world. When he gets to the third highest level, he's a holy angel in a realm called seer of truth. And at the top level, he becomes a perfect angel in a realm named for the joiner of souls. Okay, and again, on each level, he goes through a separate baptism, and that baptism is assumed to be a transformational event, but it's not. He's not being soaked with water, but it's some kind of heavenly water, which he's undergoing. And the vision here, that is, shows beyond all shadow of a doubt something that we already knew, that the ancients didn't conceive of one type of angel. The ancients conceived of many, many types of angels. And none of them really looked like, a humanoid with two wings. They, for those informed by Neoplatonists, they were ethereal beings without a really distinct material shape. That the angels are never described. We just know that there are higher and higher levels. So it's when Zostrianus goes through this final or fifth baptism, it's through this gateway that he exits the realm of soul, that is the realm of the luminaries, where most of the redeemed people live and where they'll enjoy paradise in heaven. And Zostrianus goes higher into the realm of the Barbello, which is the Sethian name for the intellect. And at the level of intellect, Zostrianus receives a crown. And it's at this level where when he receives the perfect crown, that he gets to the highest form, or the highest degree of existence that he can get. And this is when he becomes pure intellect. There's no material aspect of him at all. And he's just an intellect that is able to unite with all other intellects. Because once you are completely rid of body, you can morph into other intellects. Intellects mixing with intellects become one intellect, pulsating, and part of the divine intellect, right? So heaven is, or at least on the level of intellect, is not a bunch of individuals. Heaven is all the intellects together working as one intellect, as if the intellects were individual brain cells that all combined to form one brain. But even that is too material an image, because they're immaterial at this point. This is as high as Zostrianus can go. This is as high as he can stand, and just look into the abyss of the one. From this point, although some might argue that he can lose himself in the abyss of the ultimate God beyond intellect, what I see happening here is that he's simply morphed with intellect, with the Barbello, and therefore ever remains an image of God. But at the same time is completely immaterial and deathless, and so is rightly called not just an angel, but a God. And a God is nothing but an angel at the highest level of maturity. Now, Zostrianus, the angel, comes back. He rolls backwards according to the exact path that he followed upwards. And he re-enters his mortal body, which he left behind, just in the desert somewhere. And it's at this point where we really see the Sethians engaging with society, because Zostrianus doesn't stay in the desert after the vision. He goes out and doesn't neglect the virtue of proclaiming the message, which he does to the masses, telling them to awaken your godhood in God and to redeem their sinless and elect soul. That is, to find that element in them element, that spark of divine life, that spark of intellect, which is the same substance as the Godhead, and to cultivate that aspect. It's not a message of repentance as in traditional Christianity, where you're, you know, asking for forgiveness for sins. It's a message of awakening. But remember that in Greek, repentance is metania, which just means the experience of a change of mind. And so in that sense, you could call it a message of repentance. What we have here is, unlike, what Celsus criticizes, we don't have a self-deification. Zostrianus became a god, and he's never stopped being a god, and he re-enters his body as a god, which is something like a bodhisattva, that is someone with a superior intellect. But out of compassion, this superior being re-enters the body and tries to bring others to that same state of intellectual maturity and bliss. Now, in the former episode on Chapter 7, I recommended Luc Brisson's Neoplatonic Demons, which is a great book. Here, specifically, I can recommend an essay by John D. Turner called Baptismal Vision, Angelification, and Mystical Union in Sethian Literature. And this is in Beyond the Gnostic Gospels, a work building on Elaine Pagels' work. This is a nice little essay for getting more of a sense for angelification. It's an apocalyptic tradition that the Sethians are picking up and transforming into a Neoplatonic vision of reality and of deification. So it's fascinating. I hope that you'll be able to take a look both at my chapter and at this chapter. And if you want further recommendations for reading, check out my notes, obviously, and then contact me over the Patreon. Happy to give recommendations for those wanting to go further. And so ends my series on posthuman transformation in ancient Mediterranean thought. This is published by Cambridge University Press in 2021. The final epilogue is my evaluation of transhumanist visions of becoming something greater than human. They don't typically call it angels, but it's something very similar, evolving into a higher state, usually by means of technology, or specifically biotechnology. And I give you my take on that. I also have a lecture on the Patreon, which gives my own sense for what transhumanists are doing, and a final chapter in my book, Becoming Divine, which compares ancient deification and modern transhumanist visions. So go check that out. I really appreciate everyone's time, and I want to thank everybody very sincerely at the bottom of my heart for you taking the time to go through this series. I hope it was helpful. If you're on Patreon, I can try to get you a deal for this book. If you're not, consider joining. And thankfully, this book is now in paperback, so it's really affordable. And I hope all of you will consider having a look. My Amazon page is in the description. For now, I wish everybody well and hope that you continue your journey and never stop learning.